hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon.
She just eats. Never helps. Sits there like royalty while the rest of us do everything. That's what my daughter-in-law said. And it broke something in me. My name is Eleanor. I'm 75 years old. And last night my family told me without knowing I was listening that I am nothing but a burden. This is the story of the night I finally heard them. Every word, every look, every little silence that said more than shouting ever could. I didn't mean to overhear. It was supposed to be a nice evening, my birthday. I'd spent the afternoon helping set the table, folding napkins, adjusting the chairs because Emily said they looked uneven. I thought I was part of it all. I stood in the hallway, card in hand. The cart they'd handed me with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The one with no personal note, no signature, just a shiny sticker and a line printed by someone at a factory. I smiled and thanked them anyway. Then I heard her voice. Emily, she just eats. Never helps. I didn't move. Her voice didn't waver. It wasn't angry. It wasn't whispered. It was casual, like saying the sky is blue. Like she expected everyone to agree. Sits there like royalty while the rest of us do everything. I had made the side dishes that afternoon. I had cleaned the kitchen the day before. I had taken the trash out early that morning because the bin was overflowing. No one noticed. Not when I helped. But suddenly it was a problem that I sat down when dinner started. Then Tyler, my grandson, laughed. That hurt more than anything. Yeah, Grandma's got the easy shift. Huh. Show up, sit down, eat. Queen of the castle. Queen of the castle. Said like a joke. Like I was some lazy guest taking up space. I thought about all the mornings I drove him to school, especially on cold days when he didn't want to wait at the bus stop. I thought about his favorite meals I made from scratch because he was a picky eater. I remembered how he cried when his dog died and how I sat beside him all night. And he laughed. Then Emily again. She brought that store-bought pie, didn't she? Not even homemade. I had made that pie myself. Peeled every apple by hand. Measured everything with care. It was her favorite recipe. I had even used her mother's old dish because she once said it made it taste better. But now it was just a joke to her. Nobody corrected her. Not Tyler, not my son, not even my husband. They just let the lie hang there like it was nothing. They just kept talking. They talked about the playlist, about the wine, about the guest list for next month, as if I wasn't even there. And I wasn't, not really. I was a few steps away, listening, holding that insigniaed card like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I walked away slowly, careful not to make a sound. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing I heard. I passed the photo wall, every grandchild in a frame, every wedding, every vacation. Not one photo of me. I'd taken those pictures, paid for some of those trips. They never thought to include me in my room. I sat on the bed. I stared into the mirror. I didn't look angry. I looked like someone who finally saw, clearly, like someone waking up after years of trying to believe a lie. Then I heard it. Where is she? Probably laying down. She's old. Tyler again. Save her a piece. She'll eat anything. That one burned. Eat anything like I was some bottomless pit. Like all I ever did was take, like I hadn't fed every person in that house at one point or another. I didn't feel rage. I felt invisible. I thought about the nights Emily stayed with us after her second miscarriage. When she couldn't speak, I sat with her. When she wouldn't eat, I made broth and fed her small bites. When she cried, I held her. I never told anyone the details. I protected her. Now she called me lazy. I thought about Tyler's school days, how he hated his glasses, how he begged not to go. I made up a story that we were spies and school was our mission. I turned his fear into an adventure. He believed me. He smiled again. He said I was his favorite person. Now he called me a joke. I remembered birthdays. How I stayed up all night making cakes when we couldn't afford store-bought ones. I remembered selling my sewing machine to help with a down payment when my son and Emily bought their first house. I remembered skipping dinner for a week, once to make sure the kids had enough snacks in their lunch boxes. They never knew. I never told them. And now I was the woman who just eats. They didn't sound cruel. They sounded comfortable. That was worse. They were so used to me being there that they forgot I was a person. I didn't cry. I just sat there brushing my hair like I always did, as if it were just another night. But it wasn't. Something had changed. It wasn't that they were mean. It was that they didn't care. And I finally saw it. I laid the insigniaed card on the nightstand. I folded my hands in my lap, and I decided this wasn't about revenge. It was about being done. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I put on my best apron, the one with the little blue flowers. I went into the kitchen and started cooking. Biscuits from scratch, scrambled eggs with cheese, sausage patties, hash browns. I brewed fresh coffee. I sliced fruit. I warmed the plates just the way Emily likes. I laid out everything on the table. Napkins folded, silverware polished, glasses filled. It was a beautiful breakfast. And then I packed my bag. Just one. A small one. Just enough for what I needed. A few clothes. My documents. My phone charger. My bank papers. I walked out the door while the food was still hot. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. By the time they came downstairs, I was gone. They would eat. They would talk. And then they would realize. They would ask where I was. They would call, they would text, but I wouldn't answer because that night they showed me who I was to them. And I finally believed them. And that was the beginning of something I didn't expect. Not sadness, not regret, but freedom. When I closed the door behind me that morning, I expected to feel panic, but I didn't. I felt nothing. That was more terrifying than any rage or grief. Nothing. Like something inside me had been quietly scooped out and replaced with a silence I didn't know how to hold. I got in my car, drove not far, just enough to get away from that house and the air inside it. I parked by a lake I used to visit when the kids were small. The water was still, the kind of still that made it feel like the world had paused just for me. And that's when it started. Not with tears, not with screaming, but with remembering. I remember being 12 and watching my mother fold laundry while I swept the porch. My brothers were inside playing, laughing. She looked at me and said, "You're a good girl. We need good girls in this house." I didn't know what that meant then, but I do now. It meant I was the helper, the background, the one who didn't complain, the one who stayed out of the way, the one who made it easier for everyone else to shine. All my life. Stuck. Be useful. Be quiet. Don't need too much. In school I got straight A's. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I thought maybe they'd notice. They didn't. I was the kid whose name teachers remembered, but not whose face anyone saw. In high school, I was voted most reliable, not most kind, not most liked, just reliable. The girl you asked for notes, but never invited to the party. By the time I got married, I knew how to be invisible and useful at the same time. That became my role. I cleaned. I cooked. I held babies. I made holidays happen. I made sure bills were paid and backpacks packed. I listened more than I spoke. I supported everyone else. And they let me. Even when I was sick, I didn't rest. I remember having pneumonia once. My fever was so high I couldn't see straight. I still made dinner. No one told me to. I just knew that if I didn't, no one else would. And I didn't want anyone to be mad. I didn't want anyone to say I was selfish. I remember when Emily came into our lives. I welcomed her, made her feel at home, gave her space, gave her privacy, took her shopping when she felt overwhelmed. When she lost the baby, I sat with her night after night. I held her while she cried. I ran the bath, washed her clothes, held her hair back when she threw up from the stress. She never said thank you, and I never asked for it, because that's what we do when we love people, right? We don't keep score. But maybe we should, just enough to notice when the balance disappears completely. I remember my son when he dropped out of college for the second time. I co-signed a loan so he could try again. When he struggled with rent, I dipped into my own savings. He never paid me back. He never said, "Mom, that must have been hard for you." He said, "You're the strong one. You always know what to do." I remember Tyler, too, the one I thought I had a special bond with. I was the first to hold him after he was born. I was the one who rocked him when his mother needed sleep. I stayed up all night with him when he had colic. I brought him books, puzzles, games. I told him stories. I showed up at every school event. He used to call me his favorite person in the world. And now he called me a joke. That memory was the one that hurt the most because I believed in it. I believed he saw me. I sat in the car and let all those memories play like an old film. The kind with scratches and dust faded around the edges. One scene after another of me showing up, stepping aside, cleaning up. Messes, making life easier for everyone. And not once did anyone ask me how I was doing. Not once did someone say, "Eleanor, you look tired. Can I help?" Not once did anyone make me a meal or bring me flowers or say, "Sit down. You've done enough." I started to realize something that shook me more than any insult could have. They loved what I did, but not who I was. They liked the clean floors, the folded laundry, the quiet presence, the food on the table. But me, Eleanor, the person, they didn't see her. And it wasn't just them. It was everyone. All my life, I had been a shadow, a hand in the background, a quiet nod, a helper, never the one who got helped. I felt resentment settle into me like an old injury I never treated. Not fiery, not loud, just steady, deep and final. I remembered a Thanksgiving when the oven broke. I stayed up all night cooking everything in shifts using a toaster oven and a microwave. Everyone said it was the best meal they ever had. No one asked how I did it. They just clapped. For the food, not for me. I remembered a Christmas when I spent weeks knitting scarves for each family member. I had arthritis by then. My hands ached. No one noticed. No one said, "Did you make this?" They said, "Oh, it's not the right color." I remembered a birthday, not mine, of course, where I organized the whole party, cleaned the house, baked the cake, managed the kids, smiled in the photos. The only picture I was in, I was cleaning in the background. I remembered being called the rock of the family, and I realized what that really meant. You can lean on rocks, stand on them, walk over them, but no one hugs a rock. No one thinks the floor beneath their feet. As I sat there by the lake, the sun coming up slow and golden, I realized something I had never dared think before. Maybe I deserved more. Not for what I did, but for who I was. Maybe I didn't have to earn my place at the table by cooking the meal. Maybe I didn't have to be silent to be respected. Maybe love that only shows up when you're useful isn't love at all. That thought scared me because if it was true, then what had I been giving my whole life? What had I been holding on to? And why did I feel guilty now that I had finally let go? I looked at my phone. Missed calls, texts. "Where are you?" "Mom, are you okay?" "Grandma, please answer." They were worried. Not because they missed me, but because the machine had stopped running. I had stopped running. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notebook. The one I kept in my purse. The one with grocery lists and reminders to send birthday cards. I flipped to a fresh page, and I made a new kind of list. Things I did that no one saw. Money I gave that was never repaid. Nights I stayed up helping. Dinners I made. Tasks I handled without complaint. Conversations I never interrupted. Events I helped plan but was never thanked for. Gifts I gave without being asked. I filled 3 pages. Then I made another list. Times they asked how I was doing. Times they surprised me with kindness. Times they helped me without being asked. Times I felt seen. That list was shorter, much shorter, and that was the truth I needed to see. I sat by the lake until the wind picked up and the cold made me shiver. Then I drove to a diner I liked, ordered pancakes, hot coffee, sat by the window, and watched the world move without me for once, and I let it. I didn't rush to fix anything. I didn't call anyone to explain. I didn't feel the need to prove I was right. For the first time, I let the silence be mine. I took a nap that afternoon. I can't remember the last time I allowed myself that luxury. I curled under a soft blanket at a small roadside inn and slept for 2 whole hours. No alarm, no one needing anything. When I woke up, I didn't check my phone. I got up slowly, made tea, and sat on the porch. And I thought, maybe this is what peace feels like. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, still, like the moment before a new chapter begins. I didn't tell anyone I was coming back. Not to visit, not to explain, just to gather what was mine and finish what I had already started. It was late afternoon. The sun was low, warm, but slipping. I pulled into the driveway of the house I had paid off 30 years ago. The one with the cracked walkway I had fixed more than once. The one that smelled like cinnamon and pine in December, barbecue and lilac in spring. My house. They never noticed how much of it was mine. My hands built it. My checks maintained it. My quiet kept it from crumbling. The curtains were drawn. The porch light was still on, though it was daylight. It had always bothered me when they left lights on. Wasteful, I used to say, but no one listened. I unlocked the door, quietly like always. Inside, the breakfast dishes were still on the table, the ones I had set that morning before I left. Crumbs, jam, smears, sticky glasses, empty chairs. I looked at the room and felt nothing. No ache, no fondness, no regret. I just moved. I packed my clothes from the hallway closet, folded what was mine. The rest, all the sweaters I had lent, the aprons I had sewn, the scarves I had left on coat, hooks I left behind. I didn't want anything that lived in their comfort. I took the jewelry box from my dresser, the one my mother gave me. Inside was a bracelet my husband had bought me after our 3rd anniversary. He forgot everyone after that, but I kept that bracelet because I earned it. It was proof that once he saw me in the kitchen, I opened the drawer where I kept the spare keys, took mine, left the rest. Then I opened the drawer beside it, the one where I had stored receipts. For years, bills, property tax, maintenance schedules, all in my name. I took the folder. That one would matter later. They wouldn't be home for another hour. Just enough time. I walked through each room one last time. Not because I was going to miss it, but because I wanted to be sure I didn't forget anything that belonged to me. That included the truth. The quiet truth I had ignored for years. The truth that I had paid every winter heating bill. That I had fixed the plumbing when the basement flooded. That I had helped with the down payment when my son lost his job and moved back in. That I had paid for Tyler's first year of college when his scholarship didn't cover books. And no one remembered, but I did. I took my notebook from my purse and added 3 more lines. Repaired roof after storm damage. Paid deductible for Emily's surgery. Canceled vacation to babysit for Tyler's art show. That notebook was no longer just for reminders. It was evidence. Then came the twist. The moment that stopped me mid-step. I passed the hall closet and saw it. A gift bag tucked behind an umbrella. A dusty, crumpled bag with faded tissues sticking out. I opened it slowly. Inside was the photo album I had made for our 20th anniversary. The one with handwritten captions, baby pictures, letters, recipes. I thought it had been lost, but it hadn't. It had been stuffed in a bag, forgotten, thrown in the closet like a grocery list. I sat on the bottom step and flipped through it. The photos of holidays I organized, the meals I cooked, the notes I had written to. Remind them who we were. And it hit me all over again. I had paid for everything. I had kept it all together. And they still asked me to leave, not with words, but with jokes, with silence, with rolled eyes, with absence. That moment reminded me of the day my father packed my suitcase when I was 17. Told me to go live with an aunt. Said I was too quiet, too serious. Said he didn't know what to do with me. I hadn't cried then, just like I wasn't crying now. But I remembered. And maybe that was the problem. I remembered everything, even the things they didn't. I stood up, closed the album, put it back in the bag, then I walked it straight to the trash. I chose not to take it with me because I didn't want to carry weight that wasn't mine anymore. I walked back upstairs, paused by Tyler's room. His jacket was slung over a chair. That same jacket I bought him last winter when he said he couldn't afford one. I remembered how excited he'd been and how quickly he forgot to say thank you. I looked at Emily's mug on the counter, the one I had made for her in a ceramics class. It read to Emily, "Love always." She used it daily, never once mentioned who gave it to her. I doubt she even knew where it came from. Then I stepped into the guest room. My room, the one they called Mom's space, like a badge of honor. But the bed was always unmade, used for laundry piles, coats during parties, a catch-all space when they didn't want to deal with clutter. That's what I was to them. A catch-all, a safe option, someone to absorb what they didn't want to handle. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves scattered across the sidewalk. I zipped my bag and took one last look at the hallway mirror. Then I left for good. I didn't slam the door. I locked it gently. That evening, I logged into my online banking. First, I led every automatic transfer to their accounts. Tyler's monthly deposit gone. Emily's shared credit card for emergencies closed. My son's cell phone. Plan removed. He was 47. It was time. I checked the utilities, the ones still under my name. Electricity, water, internet, all transferred, not turned off. I wasn't cruel, but the bills would no longer come to me. Next came the house. A few years ago, after my husband passed, I updated the deed quietly, safely. I had made sure it was mine again. I contacted the realtor, a woman I had met through a friend. She was kind, patient. She listened more than she spoke. I liked her immediately. "List it," I said. "Are you sure?" She asked. "Very." The paperwork was done in 2 days. The house was empty when they returned. Furniture still there, but the person who made it a home was gone. I didn't leave a note. I didn't explain because there was nothing left to explain. That week, I turned off the family calendar, the one I had managed for years. Birthdays, doctor appointments, reminders to pick up prescriptions, all disappeared from their notifications. The silence was immediate. My phone rang. The next morning, 10 missed calls. "Emily, then my son, then Tyler, where are you? What's going on? Are you okay?" I didn't answer. I wasn't angry. I was done. They didn't need me, they said. They laughed at me. They dismissed me. But the moment I left, their world shifted because I had been holding it up quietly without applause for decades. That was the turning point. Not a scream, not a fight, just an absence, a calm, deliberate absence. They didn't realize how much of their comfort depended on me until it didn't. I found a small cottage near the coast. Simple 1-bedroom, a fireplace, a porch where the wind whistled through the trees in the late afternoon. The first night, I made soup for one, and it was enough. I sat with a book, my legs under a quilt, and for the first time in years, no one called my name from another room. I didn't have to be anything but myself, and I was enough. They would adjust. They would learn, or they wouldn't. That was no longer my responsibility. The next chapter wasn't about them. It was mine, and I was ready to write it. The phone didn't stop buzzing that first week. Messages flooded in. Missed calls stacked up. Notifications I would have once checked immediately now sat untouched. "Mom, you can't just disappear. This isn't funny. Why are you doing this to us?" There it was again. That word "to us." As if stepping away from a lifetime of being used was a punishment I created for their pain, not a choice I made for my own peace. They didn't ask where I went. They didn't ask if I was okay. They asked what I had done to them. The difference said everything. I watched the messages pile up on the screen of a phone I rarely touched anymore. Some were angry, some pleading, some so full of confusion I almost laughed. "We can't get into the online accounts. Did you change the passwords? Why is the mortgage company calling me? Is the house for sale?" And my favorite, "You're being dramatic. This isn't like you." They were right. It wasn't like me, but it should have been. Then the anger started. My son left a voicemail that was no longer just guilt. It was fury. You had no right to make decisions like this without telling us. That house belongs to all of us. How could you just sell it? He raised his voice through a recording. I could almost see his red face, the same one he'd wear when he didn't get his way as a boy. Emily sent a group message to the extended family. We're all trying to reach her. She just walked away from her. Responsibilities. No explanation. It's really selfish. Tyler texted, "Thanks for ruining Thanksgiving." My cousin left a voicemail, too. "What's this I'm hearing about you selling the house? You've always been the stable one, Eleanor. People count on you." The tone wasn't concern. It was shame. It was embarrassment, as if I had pulled a curtain and revealed a messy room they all wanted to pretend was clean. My neighbor told me Emily had cried in the driveway. She said you abandoned them. The neighbor whispered, "No." I left them to face what they refused to see. Those messages told me everything I needed to know. Not one of them said, "Are you okay?" Not one. I started waking up without anxiety humming behind my ribs. I drank tea that stayed warm. I folded clothes that were only mine. The air felt softer. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail handwritten for my grandson. "Grandma, Dad's really mad. He says you're being selfish, but I just wanted to say that I saw the cookies you left in the freezer. You always think ahead. I miss you. Love, Tyler." I cried then, not because I was sad, but because someone had finally seen something I did. That single sentence meant more than the dozens of calls demanding I return. It told me I had left the right way. Still, they didn't stop. Voicemails from my son became longer, sharper. "This is cruel. We trusted you. I had my whole life planned with you helping us. You just erased yourself without warning. That's not how families work." Another one. "What do you even want? You want us to beg? Apologize? Fine. We're sorry, but this is petty." They all used the same word, family. But none of them knew how that word had worn me down. Emily called my sister. My sister called me. "They're upset. You could have told them." And when would they have listened? After the jokes? After being left off every thank you? She was quiet. Then she said, "You always were the strong one." No, I was just the quiet one, the convenient one. A few days later, I heard from a neighbor. "They're coming to look for you." I smiled. Let them. A cousin posted a cryptic message on Facebook. "You think you know someone until they leave everyone hanging?" I turned off my internet. One night, I sat by the window with my tea and watched the light fall across the floor. The wood creaked under the quiet. I heard my own breath. It had been years since I'd heard my own breath. Then I did. Something I didn't expect for myself. I turned my phone back on just for a moment. I listened to the newest voicemail. "Emily again. I hope you're happy. Everyone's miserable. No one knows how to cook. Your son's falling apart. The bills are piling up. We depended on you, and now you're just gone." Her voice cracked. It should have made me feel sorry, but it didn't because everything she listed, the meals, the management, the support I had done for years alone without thanks. And now, without me, they were lost. That wasn't cruelty. That was clarity. A week later, a knock on the door. I didn't answer. They knocked again, then a voice. "Mom, we know you're in there. Please talk to us." I sat still, not out of malice, but out of choice. They had my voice for decades. Now I was learning what it sounded like when used only for me. The knock faded. Eventually they left. Later that night, a final message came. "We're done trying. You made your choice. Don't expect us to. Come crawling back." That was fine. I wasn't looking back. And for the first time in my life, I knew I wouldn't. I stayed in peace. They stopped calling. That was the first thing I noticed. For weeks, my phone had rattled like a live wire. But now it sat still on the table, cold and silent. They had given up, just like they promised. But I wasn't surprised. I had learned something about people like them. Once you stop being useful, you stop being seen. I woke up that morning and made coffee slowly, deliberately. I used the fancy sugar I always saved for guests. Now I was the guest and the host and the only one who mattered. I sat outside with a blanket over my knees and watched the breeze roll through the trees. The leaves made a soft, rattling sound like applause. I told myself it was for me. I hadn't been clapped for in decades. Not for real. Not when I drove across the city to drop off forgotten lunches. Not when I stayed up all night when Tyler was sick. Not when I held Thanksgiving together every year with lists, recipes, and aching feet. But now the quiet felt like applause. Gentle, constant, and just for me. That day, I opened a box I hadn't looked at in years. Inside were photographs, letters, report cards, birthday cards I had kept even when they weren't signed. I flipped through them slowly, remembering every crease. There was one letter I had forgotten, folded neatly into an envelope with no return address. It was from my younger sister, written 20 years ago, just after our mother passed. Eleanor, I don't know how you keep doing it. Holding everything up, holding everyone together. I watch you, and I think she's what Mom wanted me to be, but it's not fair. You deserve more. I hope one day you choose yourself. Love, Leah. She never sent it. She must have tucked it into a gift bag or a book. But now here it was just when I needed it. It made me cry, the kind of crying that comes from the chest. Not the eyes. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just release. I folded it again and placed it on the kitchen table. Then I made a list. Not chores. Not groceries. Just a list of what I wanted. Read every book I put off. Take a walk every evening. Try the chocolate cake recipe I always skipped. Wear lipstick again. Smile at myself. None of it had anything to do with them. For once, but it didn't end there. One afternoon, I went into town for groceries. Nothing dramatic. Just milk, eggs, tea. At the checkout, the young woman at the register looked at me and said, "I love your earrings." There. Classic. I hadn't worn them in years. Not since my husband passed. Not since the kids said they made me look too dressed up for a regular day. But today I wore them because I wanted to. And someone noticed. On the walk home, a little girl waved at me from her porch. I waved back. Her mother smiled. Just that, a simple smile. Kindness without debt. Warmth without obligation. That evening, I sat by the fire with tea and a piece of cake. Not the kind I used to bake for 10. Just one small piece still. Warm. Then the mail arrived. Inside was another envelope. This time from Tyler. "Grandma, I told Dad I was going to find you. He said to let it go, but I don't want to let it go. I don't think you're selfish. I think you're finally living. If you want me to come visit, I'd like that. If not, I understand. Love, Tyler." I held the letter to my chest. This was enough. More than enough. He had seen me, and he hadn't turned away. I wrote him back the next morning. "Dear Tyler, thank you for your letter. It meant more to me than you know. I'd love for you to visit. Let's bake something together. Just us. Love, Grandma." That night I sat by the window again. The house was quiet. The tea was hot. My shoulders weren't heavy. They might never come around. That was okay. I didn't need their understanding anymore. I had something better. Peace, self-respect, a second chance, and a future that finally belonged to me. I realized age is not about weakness. It's about dignity. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. I won't be afraid to tell the truth anymore, even if it hurts.
Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon. Thanks for watching.